Let's talk about Little Richard's life and career. May he rest in peace. Hailing from Macon, Georgia, Little Richard, born as Richard Wayne Penniman in 1932, took interest in music as a kid. He started singing at church and eventually learned to play the piano. After being kicked out by his father in his teenage years, Little Richard began traveling with vaudeville revues, which gave him experience as a performer. By the 50s, he had started to record music but still hadn't had much success as a singer. His luck came in 1956 when, while working as a dishwasher, Little Richard sent a demo to Chicago music label Specialty Records, which then offered him a deal. After signing to the label, he released his biggest song to date, Tutti Frutti. What followed was a string of other hits including Miss Ann, Slippin' and Slidin', Long Tall Sally, Lucille, and Reza began to embrace Christianity. He took up theology at Alabama's Oakwood College, married, and started creating secular music. Later, he returned to rock and roll before quitting again in the late 70s. This pattern continued over the decades until his eventual death. Although I sing rock and roll, God still loves me, Little Richard said in a 2009 interview, via the New York Times. I'm a rock and roll singer, but I'm still a Christian. Little Richard's net worth. According to Celebrity Net Worth, Little Richard had a net worth of $40 million at the time of his death. He wavered between raunch and religion, alternately embracing the good book and outrageous behavior. Little Richard? That's rock and roll, Neil Young, who heard Richard's riffs on the radio in Canada, told biographer Jimmy McDonough. Little Richard was great on every record. It was 1956 when his classic Tutti Frutti landed like a hand grenade in the top 40, exploding from radios and off turntables across the country. It was highlighted by Richard's memorable call of "Wop Bop a Loo Bop a Lop Bam Boom." A string of hits followed, providing the foundation of rock music: Lucille, Keep a Knockin', Long Tall Sally, Good Golly Miss Molly. More than 40 years after the latter charted, Bruce Springsteen was still performing Good Golly Miss Molly live. The Beatles as Paul McCartney imitated Richard's signature yelps, perhaps most notably in The Woo. From the hit She Loves You, ex-bandmate John Lennon covered Richard's Rip It Up and Ready Teddy on the 1975 rock and roll album. When the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame opened in 1986, he was among the charter members with Elvis Presley, Barry, Buddy Holly, Jerry Lee Lewis, Sam Cooke and others. Few were quicker to acknowledge Little Richard's seminal role than Richard himself. The flamboyant singer claimed he paved the way for Elvis, provided Mick Jagger with his stage moves and conducted vocal lessons for McCartney. The tug-of-war between his upbringing and rock and roll excess tormented Penniman throughout his career. Penniman was performing with bands by the age of 14, but there were problems at home over his sexual orientation. His father beat the boy and derided him as half a son. Richard left home to join a minstrel show run by a man known as Sugarloaf Sam, occasionally appearing in drag. In late 1955, Little Richard recorded the body Tutti Frutti, with lyrics that were sanitized by a New Orleans songwriter. It went on to sell 1 million records over the next year. When Little Richard's hit was banned by many white-owned radio stations, white performers like Pat Boone and Elvis Presley did cover versions that topped the charts. Little Richard went Hollywood with an appearance in Don't Knock the Rock. But his wild lifestyle remained at odds with his faith, and a conflicted Richard quit the business in 1957 to enroll in a theological school and get married. Richard remained on the charts when his label released previously recorded material. And he recorded a gospel record, returning to his roots. A 1962 arrest for a homosexual encounter in a bus station restroom led to his divorce and return to performing. He mounted 3 tours of England between 1962 and 1964, with the Beatles and the Rolling Stones serving as opening acts. Back in the States, he put together a band that included guitarist Jimi Hendrix, and later fired Hendrix when he was late for a bus. In 1968, Richard hit Las Vegas and relaunched his career. Within 2 years, he had another hit single and made the cover of Rolling Stone. By the mid-1970s, Richard was battling a $1,000 a day cocaine problem and once again abandoned his musical career. He returned to religion, selling Bibles and renouncing homosexuality. For more than a decade, he vanished. If God can save an old homosexual like me, he can save anybody, Richard said. But he returned, in 1986, in spectacular fashion. Little Richard was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and appeared in the movie Down and Out in Beverly Hills. A Little Richard song from the soundtrack, Great Gosh Almighty, even put him back on the charts for the first time in more than 15 years. Little Richard was back to stay, enjoying another dose of celebrity that he fully embraced. Macon, Georgia, named a street after its favorite son. And Little Richard was given a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. In August 2002, he announced his retirement from live performing. But he continued to appear frequently on television, including a humorous appearance on a 2006 commercial for Geico Insurance. Richard had hip surgery in November 2009 at Vanderbilt University Medical Center in Nashville, and asked fans at the time to pray for him. He lived in the Nashville area at the time. Little Richard passed away Saturday, May 9, 2020. He was 87. May he rest in peace.